We're live. We're live. How's your battery life? Full?
Okay, we're going to begin in a couple of minutes. Okay, good evening. Buenas noches, todos. This is a hearing on village names. The names of villages for, well, we just divided the island in three, and we call this the north, arbitrarily. So it's Tamuni, Manila, Momo, Toto, Maiti, Bergada, Zigo, and and I'll just kind of go through. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Rivera for hospitality and opening this place up, and also to recognize Mayor June Blossom Barragana and Mayor. Appreciate your attendance. I'm Mayor Bautista, Vice Mayor Iriarte. No, Tamuni. Tobit. So, yeah, don't Tama Titiliko. So sorry. And I live in Tamuni. There you go. That's a major mistake on my part. So I just wanted an opportunity to explain what we're doing, and I just want to go through the slides. And then we'll just take the village names in a certain order. And we'll go to the first slide. I hope that it's all coordinated here. So the point of this, what we're trying to do here is enforce public law. And according to the law on GuamPlace Names, we're supposed to, the Kumisión CHamoru is going to come up with the Place Name Commission. And we separate the place names from the village names. And the place names are, areas inside villages. Like here we have Sakpun and Zone. Ferrisville, and Portland, and so those are constitute place names. But the village names themselves and the place names were encouraged by public law to go through them to study the ancient CHamoru terminology and pronunciation of place names and restore aforementioned pronunciation with the current CHamoru orthography. So basically, most of this is a spelling exercise. And but there's going to be some controversy over some place names, but in the main, most place names are kind of generally agreed upon. For some place names, general agreement, and of course that means that there's going to be disagreement. And in this process, we have asked each village mayor to give us 5 names of people, elders in their villages, who can tell what they know about the place names in their village, as well as stories related to that. And I have to say that most mayors, but not all, have complied with that. And so we're trying to work on that. And so the purpose of this 3 meetings is to go through the village names and then make a recommendation to the Kumisión Fino CHamoru for the village names. And then in turn, the legislature will take up the village names. And so with me on this, there's a committee of place names. Senora Flores, Tercita Flores is on this committee with me, as well as Jimmy Terria, who is currently off island. Anne Marie Arceo is the sort of administradora, ejecutivo, directora of the Kumisión. And we have also a member in the audience. She's with the MPC from Baragana, Senora Rosa Palomo. Sorry. Okay. So the next slide. So a lot of times there's a little bit of confusion here on who we are. So the Kumisión has no formal role in deciding school names. A lot of people ask us, can we change the school names? No, we can't. That belongs to the Guam Board of Education. We also don't have a role in boundaries. That's a little bit tricky issue, but I'll explain that in a little bit. We have no role in boundaries, although we're always asked about what are the village boundaries, and there's some issues. We know there's a group of vice mayors, Vice Mayor here, Bautista, and he's part of that. I think he's the chair. Are you the chair?
Yeah, and Mayor June is the chair above my chair.
Okay. So they're supposed to make a recommendation on the boundaries. We don't do roads or street names. Those are actually in full control of by the village mayors. And we don't do village names. Village names are established by law by the Guam legislature. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we do have jurisdiction over place names. So after we complete this cycle on village names, we're going to go to place names, which is going to be a lot more exciting. I'll tell you, because there's more room for disagreement and there's more room for, and so what constitutes a place name? Well, we've done some research on this, and this is in keeping with common practice in other areas. Our main model, I think, is the state of Hawaii, which underwent this process about 3 or 4 decades ago. And they continue to work on it. Names of streams and rivers, names of summits, an area or a locale, spring and water basins. There are several water basins in the waterlands underneath us, mostly in Zigo and Dededo, although some are here in Tamuni, that are also given names by the Water Environmental Research Institute at the University of Guam. Bays, valleys, capes, points, plan unit developments, and commonly used names. So the plan unit developments are the ones that are going to have some controversy because people are used to the plan unit developments. So the question is, who has the right to name a plan unit development? Does that reside in the owner of the development? And then what is a commonly used name? So we have several examples here in Tamuni. We have Jonestown and Terraceville. And Paseo de Oro, I guess. Paseo de Oro is also another commonly used place name that is part of some development. Moving forward, that effort is going to, when conversation with the Department of Land Management and the Guam Land Use Commission to make sure that the Kumisión is part of that. We also have commonly used names like Low Downtown or No Downtown or Smurfville or Gura 501 or Central City. And these are all place names that are used by people and we're not sure why. They're kind of cute, some of them. But a lot of them, Kaiser, Old Kaiser, New Kaiser, sort of Kaiser, I don't know. And of course, for most of my life, I actually lived in 2 plan unit developments, in which I'm pretty sure the public had no input. One was Jonestown, and the other is Baca Gardens in Jones. So moving forward, how do you deal with that? And even looking backwards, how do you deal with it? Okay, next slide. Okay, so our purpose here, in accordance with the law and in accordance with our desires at Kumisión, is to honor our ancestors and to align place names with the CHamoru orthography, research the meaning of indigenous place names, and to understand the history of place. So when you go to Google Maps, and the end product of this is going to look something like this. You go to Google Maps and then you put your address. Then your address will say you live in, it won't just say you live in Zigo, it might say you live in Zigo, or it will say you live in Harmon Field. And then that place will have a link on it and you can get a little bit of the story of that place. So that's the end product that we're hoping to convey through this. So of interesting stories, and there's a lot of stories where people are not fully aligned either. Next slide. So I'll go through this and then we'll go to the map. No? Okay. So we'll just go. Yeah. This is the section in the Guam Public Law that outlines the names of the villages and the municipalities. So here we have the municipality of Dedido, right? Yeah. So what it does in there is that this is the part of Guam Public Law that calls it Dedido. Then it has all the, the boundaries that are attached to it. Most of them are lot numbers, but some are just place names too. So in this instance, you have some that are place names and some that are lot numbers. In this case, not all areas are technically called municipalities. So Tamuni is not a municipality. Tamuni is listed in public law. Is that up on the next slide? All right, the village of Tamuni. So Tamuni is not called a municipality. It's called a village. And I think there's 3 or 4 other places that are called villages. Agana Heights is a village, not a municipality. And the reason for that is tied to property taxes. So the property tax laws never have to be changed in order to create the municipality of Tamuni. It doesn't mean much right now, but except that the mayor is the mayor of the municipality of Tamuni, Mayor Rivera, is the municipality of Tamuni in practice, but not in real names. So that we're hoping that gets corrected in that. So for those of you that live in Tamuni, when you look at your property tax bill, you can see that you're a suburb of Dedido. That's what it says. you're a suburban area of Dededo. And that's an old practice. So that hasn't been cleaned up. We're hoping that as a result of this, all of that would be cleaned up. Because, you know, Tamuni, hey, I'm proud of being from Tamuni. Next slide. And so what we've done here is that we've gone through the southern villages. There was not, we went through those villages. There was almost unanimous agreement, not too much change except in Santa Rita, they wanted to add Sumai to it. So it's going to, the recommendation is Santa Rita to add Sumai. Then in the central area, major disagreement on Agana Heights. So we haven't recommended what to do with Agana Heights. We had an extended public hearing in Agana Heights, and then most people said they didn't want to change it at all. So we'll have to, the Kumisión hasn't made a decision on that. We have to consider that, of course. And then here we are in Tamuni. And I put this up here just to point out that, you know, the official name of Tamuni is just Tamuni. It's not Tamuni Tomhom Harmon. It's not even Tamuni Tomhom. It's not even Tamuni Tuma. It's just Tamuni. I just showed that in the public law. So if you want to change it, then that would have to be recommended. And so I know that there's common use now of Tamuni Tuman Harmon. But of course, in keeping with the law, whether or not we add Tuman to the name of the village, the name Tuman is going to change to Tomo because that's the original pronunciation and that's what's going to happen. So even if it was just treated as a place name. Mong Mong Toto Maiti, well, there's a 3 names, but that's in the public law. So that's always been that way. Bargada, to just 1 R. Manila, the mayor of Manila is not here. Mayor of Dededo is not here. Just for Manila, I just added Pagan. That's not a recommendation. That's just to show that people can think in different ways. Dededo, you have Dededo with Astumbo and Matranano, which actually, Matranano is actually in Zigo, and Matranao is actually in Dededo. And just so we know, there was no Matranano before World War II. It was just Matranao. So somebody said, well, now it's Matranao now. So they decided to change it. It's Matranao now. So I don't, you know, funny line, but an inaccurate line. And then the same thing with Zigo. Zigo, and you know, whether, you know, we'll see in the map of the place names. I'll go through that quickly. Zigo Santa Rosa, or Zigo Hanum, or Zigo Uli, or Zigo. That's really up to the Commission. Next slide. And we'll go through that in the next coming months. We'll go through the place names in the same order. Southern, central, and then northern. I predict that's going to be take a little bit longer than 3 months because there's a lot of things. And then we're going to address the Plan Union Development for the Guam Land Use Commission. And then, can we go to that map? I just wanted to show you this map to show you what was in the map in 1940. Hopefully we'll get it up here. Okay, so you see on this map, this is actually the place names, and you can see like they had actually 3 municipalities. They had the municipality of Matranao, municipality of Dededo, and municipality of Zigo. And then you can see the names of the places. This was before the construction. This was before the 1940. And this was the sort of the map that was put in the packet of the troops that were landing in Guam in 1944. And then you can, this was before the construction of large military bases. So you can just see, just to point something out here, you can see that Gajanero exists, Lupuk, Upi, that whole area of Upi is now what is Anderson Air Force Base. So that's Upi. And then you go down and you can just go down that road and you get to Ipapao. And above that is Ishengso. That's, labeled White Shengso, but that's Ishengso. And then you have Ipapao. And then you keep going down like you're going to Hagapnya, and you get to Liguan, right? And then after Liguan, you get to Dedido. See, and you see that Dedido. And so what happened after the war is they switched Dedido and Liguan. Actually, Liguan sort of stayed where it is, but they moved Dedido to where it is now, what we call Old Dedido. So what had happened there is that you had where the original Dedido was, as near as I can tell, is where San Miguel Brewery is. So San Miguel Brewery and the Micronesia Mall area, that was the original Dedido. That was Santa Barbara Church. That was where the church was. And then, of course, that was taken in that whole Harmon complex. The Harmon complex was a huge complex. And so that was taken away for that purpose. Then they decided to kind of construct the village where you have the U and the Santa Barbara now. And when they moved that village there, they officially called it Dedido. So Dedido used to be to the west of Liguan. Now it's to the east of Liguan. That's what happened there. So you see, you go to Tijan, you see Halagua, you see Toto, you see Maiti. And so most of these places sound familiar. You see Sinanga, you see Tutuhan, and Paasan, and Apuga. You see, those were the three place names for what is now Agana Heights. So those were the names that have been passed on for years. If you go back up north, I'll just point one of these right there, Fina'nå'guen. That's Fina'nå'guen. And then there's another place, Fina'nå'guen. But I guess that's another map. But yeah, yes. There was another map. Fina'nå'guen and Fina'nå'guen were like both the same places, but one labeled it Fina'nå'guen and the other labeled it Fina'nå'guen, known today as Fina'nå'guen. So that's the story on that. So I just wanted to point out that map because that map and the place names. There was another map that came out in 1945 called Guamanian Place Names, and that was done by land management, and it was all done in quadrants. Do we have that map or a reference to that map? No?
Yes, it's going to take some
time. It's okay. But that has all the place names. And so what we've done with that is we've taken those place names on those quadrants and we've listed them down by municipalities. And we've also thrown in all the names that we hear, plan unit developments or commonly used names. And we've thrown them all in. And that will be the list for each municipality that will go through with the language informant and then come to some kind of decision. That's later on in the year. But I just wanted to point out that this is a serious effort. It's not something we just do lightly, and it's something that we we're going to consult people who live in the villages for a long time. It's very, very important that those people that are nominated, that are recommended to serve as informants, have a deep knowledge and a story. They all have stories. So that's it. So next slide, and we'll go to the village names for this evening. By the way, we're on Zoom and on Facebook. How many people are we got now?
We have 6 on Zoom.
All right, so we'll go to Tamuni. Okay, so Madam Mayor, you have, or anyone wants to speak on Tamuni? Always, this is just to hear people what they think about Tamuni. Just so I explain the history of the word Tamuni itself. Most people by now know that Tamuni is not a Chamorro place name, that it's a name, a Carolinian place name. And the Carolinians that lived in that area started living there maybe as early as the 1840s, 1850s, and they lived in that area that is now called Apotwan, and that is where the onward Aganya is. So that area, that beach area, was where the Carolinians lived. So the Chamorros called the Carolinians Cupalo, the Spaniards call them Carolinos, the Carolinians themselves call themselves, usually call themselves Falawas or Refalawas. And so that was, but the name that, and I've got this from 2 different informants. One is Larry Ragatol, who's from Lamontrek, and he's the navigator. And the other is a longtime friend, Jesus Elamito, who's a Carolinian from Saipan. And they both came at the same conclusion that the original word was Tamurlelam, and then Tamurlelam means that the landing of the chief. So Tamur is the chief, and then the landing of is the Tamurlelam. And so as it was written and it was heard, over time it became Tamuni. And so that's the origin of the place name Tamuni. So that it sort of put out of focus the Apotwan, because you had Apotwan, you had Oka, you had Sakpun, which is close to the cliffside there where you have those big condominiums now. That's Sakpun. Then you have Oka, you have Apotwan, and you have Social. And then there may be other areas. Of course, you had Tomu, and you had Ipo, you had Pokya, you had other places along the way. So, you know, we kind of need some informants to kind of give us a sense of where this place begins, where this place ends, and then we'll kind of make a recommendation on what to do with those place names. Okay, so that's the question is, all right. So right now, officially, it's only Tamuni. So the question is, does anybody want to make a recommendation to change it? Officially, it's only Tamuni. And of course, it will be spelled Tamuneng. That would be the main thing. To be consistent with the orthography. Anybody want to speak on Tamuni? Tomu? Harmon? Come on up.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lugåt, for the opportunity. Since I put out the press release, I've been getting messages in regards to the whole name changing and, everyone conveying their concerns and, their suggestions. But, tonight I've asked them to please come. This is the time to bring up all that information. And so, like with me, myself, I'm still gathering information because, we want to know what is it going to be changed to. There's people saying leave it alone. There's a lot of people saying, we want to, we respect our culture, and so, we want to do what we can to, protect it and stuff like that. So again, at this time, I see residents of Tamuni here, and I'd like to give them the opportunity to please, speak up and say what you would like to, to let the commission hear and all those that are present. Okay, and I want to recognize our Youth Congress representative, Mr. Vicente Tarwa, chair, and the residents.
All right, okay, Vicente, you want to say something? Or you want to add to this?
Oh, sure, yeah. I just want to say, Zigo for the opportunity to speak this evening. And I think that this is really a call to action for all of us to step up and to think about what we want for our descendants and the people of Guam. And I say that Dr. Underwood also spoke about how we should use Hawaii as a model and the work they've been doing to preserve their culture, the Kanaka Maoli culture. And so I think that it's important that when we have this discussion tonight, we think about that and we think about what kind of, what status of our culture we want to raise the next generation of Guam residents and of CHamoru's with. And so I just want to put forward that I think changing Tamuni to the, where it would end with N-E-N-G, would be, as Dr. Underwood said, it falls in line with the orthography and would be a proactive step to protect our language and to perpetuate it for future generations to come. I was also wondering, and this is just a thought to put out, a sentiment to share, with the word Harmon, because it was named after military personnel, and because there's no necessary attachment to our culture. I've heard from my dad, who grew up in Harmon, that it also used to be called Fina'nå'guen, and I wanted to put that sentiment forward, so we could actually maybe change or alter the name of Harmon to be something that's more attached to our culture and to be a symbol of TaotaoTåno and of our CHamoru identity. So, Zigo Smasi.
Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, thank you for that. Just to clarify Harmon was the commanding Air Force general, Army Air Force at the time, during World War II. So he was a really good shot. It's like equivalent to Nimitz for the Navy, and he was Harmon was for the Army Air Force. But he had a huge swath of the island named after him. So that Harmon Field complex and the Harmon housing just took up a good chunk of that island. It went all the way up to Two Lovers Point. They had housing areas there. They had that whole area, and of course the Harmon, what we call Harmon Field or Harmon Industrial Park now, kind of went all the way up into Dedido. It actually moved the original Dedido over to the other side of Lugåt. So it's a major change. Now, here's the irony. Here's the irony. Harmon died in a plane crash. Not related. Well, it was during the war, but it was just sort of an accident. It wasn't for hostile action. He died in a plane crash, and on his way to Hawaii, I think out of Quadro. And he had his chief of staff was a brigadier general. His chief of staff also died in the plane crash. And in honor of the chief of staff, they named Anderson Air Force Base. So Anderson is actually kind of like lower ranking and less historically significant than Harmon was. But I guess they decided not to name Anderson Air Force Base after Harmon, because they figured he had a big part of the island already named after him. So most of the Harmon Field, the industrial complex, all that, that's already been officially renamed. It's called the E.T. Calvo Industrial Park, and that was passed by the legislature. So that's a different kind of placing. So the legislature can name, a park. So they can name Joseph Flores Park. So Joseph Flores Park is part of that complex, and that has a defined location. But Joseph Flores Park is in Ipa. So the Ipa was always there. So the E.T. Calvo Industrial Park, I don't know what that area was called before. I think it was just all called generally Dedido. Because I know that because my own grandfather's property was mostly of, where Pia Marine is and all that area. That was all taken right after World War II. So, just as an aside. So that's what happened with Harmon. Now, of course, and I had this conversation with Mayor Rivera, that the use of Harmon, the popularization of the use of Harmon, was actually encouraged by Mayor Frank Blas de Punto Mayor, who was a great guy, and I knew him for a long time, because he lived in Harmon. he lived in Harmon Field, so he started kind of using Harmon a lot, whereas I don't think people thought of it that way, but you know, of course, practice, you know, once people get used to something, they think of it as, you know, most people think history began when they began. They don't think history began before them. Well, history started when I started thinking about it. What happened before me is not history. So there's a lot of that. I ran into somebody who said, no, we don't like to. We liked it better when they said we lived in Upper Tumon than living in Harmon. It sounded more elegant. Where do you live? Upper Tumon. Now I live in Harmon. Well, that doesn't sound so elegant, you know. So those are all kind of perceptions about how people feel with that place names. That's why it's really important that we try to have an anchor for place names. And that's why we're spending this time doing what Vicente encourages us to do.
We do have input on Zoom.
Okay, go ahead. What's the input on Zoom?
So this is submitted by Signer Hope Cristobal. She says, as a resident of Tamuning, on behalf of our family, I highly recommend that the name Tamuning Tomhom be adopted as the village name in CHamoru.
Well, you know, that's unfair, Hope, because you're the chair of the commission. You're going to get your input eventually. But thank you for that. Why, if you're doing it on behalf of your family, okay, there you go. So on behalf of the Cristobal family, maybe not all the Cristobal. No? Yeah. Go ahead, Jim. Yes, sir. Here's a distinguished resident, long-time resident of Tamuni.
Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I'd like to start off with, first of all, whether you're doing the whole thing wrong, we're doing the whole thing wrong. And I'll go back and say that the legislature and the governor started off wrong. They should have had to go out and start finding out what the people wanted before they went in and made a law that the people have to go by. When you do that, that's like a dictatorship. And that's what they're doing on this, what we're here for now. We've already been told we're not going to change it. We already said it's not going to change. It's going to take time, which is absolutely wrong. We put in out a dictatorship on Guam, which is an American soil. It should be we, the people, are the ones who should be making this decision. And if the people made the decision correctly for what they wanted, then the legislature and governor could go in and have it done whatever they want, the people wanted, and the people would be happy to accept it, but not the way you're doing it now. You hear people all the time on the radio everywhere, people that are not like, don't want, but it's being forced down our throats. Yeah, that's my first. Second is, if what you're saying is being changed all the time, I, as a business person, go out, I have to change everything, all my, that I have, telling people where to ship our stuff to, everything else. And it's going to cost us thousands and thousands of dollars just to make our changes in our companies. Every other company in this island is going to do the same thing. And guess what? The government of Guam is going to have to go out and start changing all the streets and everything. And you know, Guam tells us they don't have the money to build a hospital. They don't have the money to go out here and fix my roads on the streets here. They don't have that, but they got an opportunity. They want to go out here and dictate to us, all of us, what the government wants. Now, which is better for us, the people? Doesn't matter if you're, I happen to be a statesider. I've been here since 1969. My wife, Zika, we have I got 3 kids that were in the hospital here in Tamuni. They were there. And I've got grandkids that were there. But come down to, why are you telling me, my kids, that they weren't born up here in the hospital here? They were born in something else. Okay? Why are we being dictated to? Whenever we need this money that you're going to spend to do everything on the island here, but when you won't even go out and fix up our roads, you won't fix up a hospital, you go out here and you're all the time trying to get something done, and the legislature, oh, we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that. But they got money to dictate to us. And I think that is wrong. I think we all should go in and stop it and find out what the people want first before you come out and telling us what we're being dictated to. That's my thought.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Atkins. Just to be fair to this process is not dictating anything, it's just a public hearing. And
the governor already asked people a few minutes ago that it was going to happen.
What was going to happen?
These streets would be changed. Everything would be changed. Up here, the name is going to be changed. Everything is going to, what you told us there, all these things are going to be changed. You said they were going to be changed.
Well, what is going to be changed is the spelling of Tamuni for sure, because that's consistent with the law. And that law was passed, a few years ago. So it's not, this is not, and it's not an effort to shove anything down anyone's throat. We're here to just hear people, whether they want Tamuni, whether they just want Tamuni, whether they want to add it on to Tuman or Tomu. And that's basically what we're here to hear. And it's an open process. There's no one, and we're only in this instance with the village names, as I pointed out, we're an advisory body for that. There's the legislature that'll make that call. And when the legislation comes up for the village names, then I urge everybody to go down there and make their sentiments known.
If the legislature asked this before they came out and told the people you have to have it. This what I'm getting at, what you're doing now,
that's why
people should have had an opportunity to go in and have this whole meetings before it was told by the legislature, the governor, that we have it. Now you go and see if you want to, what we want to do.
No, that's not exactly the way it happened, Mr. Atkins. That's why I quoted the public law from the beginning. The public law outlines, and that's been public law for several years now, outline the process of what we're going to do. And that's what we're doing. So the actual change is not going to happen until it goes to the legislature. So there's not no one is shoving anything down anyone's throat. We're just having a public hearing and we're allowing people to express themselves. But I understand the frustration about changes and a little bit of confusion and changes in addresses and how that's going to work out. And of course, the same thing was said with Hagatna. And that's just the legislature made that call, and the legislature is a public body. It's a public body, and it has a process attached to it. And of course, we're a public body as well. And our authority, I've outlined the authority we have. I didn't disguise it to anybody. I made it clear what our authority was, what we could change, what we couldn't change. And I think we're doing this in a way that it's appropriate. Okay. Anyone else want to speak on Tamuni or any other matter? We'll go to another village. Come on, Tamuni. We're all happy with Tamuni. Okay. All right, we'll go to the next one. Momung Toto Maite. That's what it is now. Again, it's the same thing. Just offering an opportunity for people to tell us what they think about Momung Toto Maite. Now that's the one village and the other village that started off of the two name. Momon Toto Maiti and Chalapago Orca were the two village names that have always had more than one place name in. MTM, going once. Anybody out there want to speak to MTM on the Zoom line there? Nobody?
He has a mayor's council meeting. No, he has a, there's no planning council meeting at his office.
Exactly. Well, I guess they're all satisfied with their name. Okay, well, thank you for that. All right, Bergada. Anybody want to speak to Bergada?
Thank you
Go
so
ahead.
much. We're here tonight to talk about our village names and just the spelling that we needed to change, removing that one R. I also want to first off introduce who our candidates are tonight. We have our vice mayor here, the Zigo, and to my left, I also have Dr. Zurzan. I keep saying Samus because she just that's correct. Yes. And then I have Mr. Felix Benaventi and his wife that is here also tonight. And with this,
I thought they were from Denver.
They like the bar.
of course, with the spelling itself, of course, we needed to remove that one R and how we pronounce it as Barigon. Not Barrigada like we're singing, right? And also with the Cañada. Cañada is always, we've always been teased in Canada, which is actually not Canada, it's Cañada, how we pronounce it. And then we have this thing about Tizen. Tizen is actually Tuzen, because it's the stomach of the island, right? And that's another one, again, that I think we should kind of look into. But the other names are placed down. We are pretty much satisfied with what we except for the spelling. The spelling is the only.
Legend, because there's going to be a little bit of dispute on the people of Legend who live in Manila. Technically, they live in Manila, but they keep wanting to vote for you.
We're trying to fix that.
Yeah.
We are very trying
So that's a place name issue that affects boundaries.
Yes, very much.
Yep.
And also in Cañada. Cañada.
Toto, Cañada, Toto, and Cañada.
And then, what's that, Manila on Paragon too? On the backside, and Deradu on Paragon. Yeah. And Tamuni on Paragon too.
Well, that involves voter registration. And when it involves voter registration and village services, a lot of people are going to take that very seriously.
Yes.
Yes.
And when you look at that, and this is where we come in to really find and distinguish the boundaries. And that's one of that we're looking into. So we also have to violate the law. There is a public law, the GCA, the boundaries of the municipality. And meeting with Mr. Guåhan, the director, there is along the coordinates of where our boundaries lie. I think it's going to take a while for them to actually survey the points. But if we look at the coordinates of how the boundaries lie, that's where we have to, I guess, go by. And working at Bureau of Planning and Statistics, you can see the map and how it's drawn and how Barrigada looks on our logo. That's how Barrigada looks in the size of our area. So I guess we're working on it to really
Okay. Well, thank you for that input on Barrigada. And this is one of those, the use of the double R's.
Right.
And also in some instances the use of an R instead of an L, which is actually a spelling, it's a spelling in one language, primarily Spanish, and then applied to another sound system. And so that has accounted for all the Rahan and Mariso. So some would argue that Barrigada maybe had an L in the beginning, but I don't think so. Could be, but we're not going to go that far. That's going a long way. Okay, anyone else want to talk on Vergada? 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 Going once? Going twice, what a cooperative group. Okay, we'll go to Manila. I just threw Pagat up there just for the heck of it. But, you know, but Manila is a pretty big place. Manila is a pretty big place. And it also has some plan unit developments that, like Laddie Heights. And what happened, you know, I think Laddie Heights was Adacom.
Yes.
So, you know, whether they want to. And again, that's an issue that's going to come up. But Manila, there's no real change in the spelling. Everything is Manila and PT are the only two places that the spelling is not going to change.
We have a comment. Yeah.
Any comment on this?
Yes, this is submitted by Patrick Zurzan. He says this is totally unnecessary because all the places already have CHamoru names. It is really sad people don't even know that CHamoru and English are both already the official languages of Guam. Since CHamoru and English are both the official languages of Guam, all the places already have CHamoru names. For example, since CHamoru and English are both the official languages of Guam, Talafofu is already Talafofu. Both names are correct. One is the English name and one is the CHamoru name. Both English and CHamoru are the official languages of Guam. And he's continuing to submit the correct spellings of other villages. So.
Okay, all right. I've read that point. That's a point by Mr. Zurzan, making the point that since CHamoru and English are both official languages, that therefore both spellings can be correct. The only problem with that is I just read the public law. The public law says that you're supposed to follow CHamoru pronunciation and spell it with a new orthography. So that's but you know, I understand the input. Thank you, Paul. I haven't heard from you in a while. Okay, that's it for Manila. Next one, Dedido. Dedido is gonna change. I threw up Astumbo and Matanano, which really Matanano is not even in Dedido. It's in Zigo. Anyone want to talk on Dedido? Biggest village, 40,000 people. Nobody wants to speak on Dedido. Wow. Anybody? Come on.
I'm from Dedido.
Okay. You want to speak on Dedido? You like it? You like
All for it.
Okay. That's it first. But you don't want to call it Dedido dash Astumbo. Or, okay. Just as an aside, I think many of you know that the designation as, like in Aspengo or Astumbo, is really named after a person. So it's like Astumbo is Tumbo's place, and it should be separated. It's like, you know, if we wanted to name a place after Mr. Atkins, we would say Atkins, and then we would have to separate it out. Or we wanted to name a place after Senora Teresita Flores here, as Teresita. So that's the but so the as there really should be separated out because Tumbo is a person's name. So there's several places like that. I think there's one in Vergada, no? Aspengo?
Yes,
Aspengo, and there's other places. As Lucas is Talafofo. Talafofo has as Lucas. So there's several places where they ask it. Okay, that's it for that. Now, the last one, my hometown, Zigo. Actually, I want to say to Mr. Atkins, me too, I was born in Tamuni, Oka. It's in my birth certificate. I'm not going to change it. But just so you know. Zigo, we have Mayor Sanchez. You have anything to say about Zigo?
I just meant to reiterate what Okay, we have that boundary issue with the linguistic growth. A lot of people are still confused. Which side is Zigo? Which side is Dedido? Because if you were to drive into Zigo, the entering Zigo sign is right where the old Ace Harbor is at. Okay, but when you get into Wisted Road, they tell you, oh, the right side of Wisted Road is Zigo, the left side is Dedo. But there's a certain road that leads you from Wisted Road that takes you to Youre Road. Okay, the boundary, and I conferred with the former vice mayor that evented before. He says the boundary for that, there's a ponding basin that services the Youre housing there. That ponding basin, after the ponding basin is Zigo, anything before the ponding basin is Dedo. So I think before we do any kind of name changing for the village of Zigo, we really have to situate the boundaries on where is Zigo, where is Dedo. Until that boundaries are situated, then we can go about changing the names. All right. But I think that's the biggest issue right now that we really need to work on is the boundaries in Zigo. Another part is in the Tamuni area. You have part of that is Zigo, part of it is Dedo. But it's not really set in stone on which part is Dedo, which part is Zigo. So I think before we do any kind of name changes, we have to situate the boundaries first in Zigo. Because if we need to move that entering Zigo sign further up towards Wistic, then we, because where that sign is at, anything to me after before the entering Zigo sign should be considered Dedo. Because you put that sign there, that's saying you're entering Zigo. So Wistic Road technically should be Dedo. So until we situate that boundary, I think this thing.
Well, there used to be a woman who used to call up the radio station and said she lived in Zigo.
Yeah, because we have some residents.
Everyone remember that? I live in Zigo.
We have some residents who stay on the left side of Wistic Road, and they say, "Oh no, we're from Zigo. We've always been considered Zigo." Yeah. But technically, they're saying their side is Dedo. Yeah. So a lot of the residents on that Wistic Road boundary line, who are on the left side, still consider themselves Zigo. So I don't know how we're gonna, until we situate that situation. And
okay, well, thank you for that input, Mr. Mayor, and also, I need the names of some of your elders so we can sort out the Natanano issue as well. But thank you very much. Thank you for your input. Anybody else want to speak on Zigo? Anybody? We all love Zigo. Don't we all love Zigo? Well, we love all of these places. I don't want to sound like I'm part of Zigo. Okay. So Zigo, we're not sure, but sometimes people say that it's Zugo. It's kind of like the harness that you put on an animal, and so that's the root for that. And it's the same kind of issue with tuta, because you're assuming that there's an E in front of it. And when you put an E in front of it, it changes the pronunciation. So Zurzan by itself, E Zurzan. So you assume that E is kind of understood. And that could have happened with Zugo and Zigo. But, again, that's a separate issue. But thank you for your input. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to say anything for the good of the order? Thank you. I'm doing my Zoom. Zoom and Facebook. Thank you. Thank you all of you for coming. I appreciate it very much. And thank you, Senora Flores and Marie.
Good job.
Just masih terus untuk adios.